If you could define in one sentence, what does masculinity mean to you?
Masculinity, a set of attributes, behaviors, and roles associated with men and boys. Manhood, manliness.
Is that a dictionary definition? You should look that up.
No, I had it. I did do some wondering what people did think about, but sounded pretty good.
That is my pops, William Rivas, the one and only. I'm pretty sure y'all know him by now. He has been on a few episodes of Brown Enough, and he was a big part of Rubirosa.
I'd like to know why I would be someone that would like to discuss masculinity. What was the thought about talking to your dad?
Because you're a man, and because fathers play a big role in people's lives, in both genders, in any gender. The father role is important, and so that's why.
Cool, I'm on it.
That's right. Today we're talking all about masculinity. The way it shows up in relationships, the way it shows up in everyday life, and in Latinidad culture. And I will be getting a little help from two men. One I know super well, my pops. The other I more recently became acquainted with, Mark Pagan. He's the creator and host of the podcast, Other Men Need Help. My name is Christopher Rivas, and this is Brown Enough. You already know, stories between black and white. Here we go. All right, you have heard me spout off about a lot of things on this show. Art, movies, pop culture, TV, media, representation, classical music. And we do not limit ourselves over here at Brown Enough. But this is a topic that I even got pretty deep into in one of the episodes for Rubirosa, the other podcast that I created and hosted. Check out that episode. It's episode 6. It's called Big Tigre Energy. I highly recommend it. Now, y'all will hear from my pops a little later, but first, I want you to hear from Mark Pagan. Mark is a multi-talented superstar, especially when it comes to storytelling. He's a podcast producer, editor, filmmaker, and a self-proclaimed graying b-boy. He has been working on his show, Other Men Need Help, for about 6 years. It's got a fascinating origin story.
I was standing outside of a pizza place, like on a Saturday night here in Brooklyn. And there was what looked like a man and a woman they were at the curb, and they were trying to get a cab. They looked like a couple, and the guy was the one that was taking charge of hailing the cab. And he was doing it in this very cool guy way, like his arm was sort of up but kind of limp. He wasn't even looking where cars were coming from. It was like the most ineffective way to get a cab. But I know that move where it's like, what's up? Yeah, we're going to get this cab. And she was, it's 10 o'clock. I just looked at the woman he was with, and she was like, dude, stop this stuff. She took his arm, put it down, threw her arm up, like very, I'm getting a cab, threw her arm up. 15 seconds later, there's a cab that came. So the cab came, and he still had this pose of like, all right, I got you. And they were getting into the car. She got in first, and he still had this loose pose. And right before he got into the car, his body got really erect. And he did this, it was almost like an exorcist head twist thing, where he was surveying the area to make sure that nobody saw that moment of emasculation. And I thought, that's the show I want to make. It is about the little moments that point to everything for all of us. And the title Other Men Need Help was sort of my cheeky way of saying, well, it's all the other guys. That guy needs help. I didn't want to do a show in which the host was sitting there sort of above it all. I really had a desire to hear from more men to talk about their experiences, even as hosts, as, in whatever format. And so I look for stories that tell the ways in which we are searching for connection, trying to understand our masculine identities and try to do it in a very, very playful way. We call it Sesame Street about men for adults. And I think the vibe, hopefully, as a listener, fits that.
My friend Natalie and I have a running joke. I've known her for 8+ years now, something like that. And one time she went to grab my arm or something. She was like, "Did you just flex?" and I was like, I did, and then we started talking. Shout out to her and the safe space I guess she provided for me. I was like, I think I've done that a lot of my life. I think a lot of men, right, to not feel soft. Like they will, it's the same thing as holding in your stomach or, all of that, the tension we create in our body to not appear soft.
Yes.
And so now we have this running joke that when we see each other, she'll like touch different parts of my body and I'll like flex and act like it's totally natural. Who or what were some of your biggest influences on your sense of masculinity? What shaped you maybe, I guess, I don't want to say for wrong, but like senses of masculinity that you had once admired that maybe you don't admire anymore? And then who has influenced you in a way that you're like, oh, this is a beautiful way to move. This is masculinity.
I grew up with a lot of women. And then my father, when he was around, my father was much older. He was old dad. By default, the men, his peers, my tios and then by default my cousins, like everybody was older. And then my mom has a thing for older men. So my stepfather ended up being older than my dad after my dad died. I say that first off to say I grew up, the masculinity that was immediately around me was old masculinity. And there's a mutedness, sometimes, not always, but that I've observed, at least with the older men in my life, like a mutedness of sort of performance. And I grew up with a lot of, the men were Caribbean, there was a tenderness there and things like that. I gravitated towards that. And I probably had my trials just as anybody else did. But I thought once I moved into middle and high school, I wanted to be a DJ. I was a big hip hop kid. And the problem was I just wasn't tough. And so eventually I just kind of, I morphed into hanging out with sort of different circles of guys that would take me in. So I think ultimately what I was searching for and what has resonated over that time are some of those foundations of what I was seeing with the older men in my life and what has become some of my longest relationships with men and men that I seek out now is, I guess, a muted version of, I don't want to call it a muted version of masculinity. It's just quiet, just a quiet tenderness. A little bit more of an awareness, a little bit more of an emotional availability. My stepfather, Lauren, passed away in September at the age of 90, no, almost 98. He was mad old, but he lived a long life. And so I lived the last nearly 30 years of my life with a man who was raising me even at the time as a senior citizen. And it's only now I can reflect on what a profound effect it had to have somebody who was also not just that, but an emotionally available older man who tried to see me, who had no reason to show anybody else anything other than who he was, who cared and was very vocal about his care for my mother and the people in his life. And I probably reacted in younger years trying to not be that, but I think ultimately that's the sort of role model, that form of masculinity has stuck with me as a roadmap as I move forward.
I use brown on this show and in my life. So I think we're both brown men. And there are a lot of stereotypes about sort of brown Latino men, right? Poor stereotypes. Maybe you can mention some of the negative ones, and then maybe you can talk about some of the positive ones from our culture.
If we were to go to ChatGPT to ask it or do a Google search of like, what is, how would you describe a Latino man or like Latino masculinity? Machismo is the like overused. If we were to do a Google alert on machismo, I think it would drive us nuts because that's the most often way that I feel we are described. And I'm not necessarily here to correct that, but I think what that implies is a level of blind pride, a level of control, a level of overreactiveness at times. The word jealousy comes to mind, competitiveness, stiffness. There's a number of other things, but those would be some of the negative stereotypes, as well as like this idea of the wanderer and the philanderer and the playboy as well. I think that's the bucket of Latino stereotypes about men I can think of.
And now, what about some positive ones that you're Puerto Rican, I'm Dominican, Colombian. What are some of the positive masculinity traits we have?
Tenderness. That would be if I were to make my stereotype, like my dying stereotypical words towards Latino men, like tell us what we are. I'd be like tender. At least that's what I've encountered throughout my life with both the men as well as a bunch of peers. I think there is a tenderness. There can be a warmth. There could be an incredible openness, and I think there's beautiful, deep emotional reservoirs that I've seen with Latino men that I think are tremendous. I think there's a bonding capacity that I gravitate towards with Latino men. I'm working on something right now, and on a podcast project, and one of the hosts / producers, he's Colombian, and like the access to even just touch, like just organic, like the access to just like grabbing the forearm for almost like punctuation or emphasis when we're making a point. We did a live event the other day, and I think it's okay. I don't think I'm betraying his confidence to say he was a little bit nervous. And I was sitting next to him right before he was about to start, and it was just like scratching his back, just like, and that can happen between other people that aren't Latino, but there is an invitation that I've seen with men that are Latino that I haven't experienced with everybody else.
Is there an episode of your show, you've done a lot of episodes, that really changed you? Like after producing it, was there one story, one thing that you were like, ugh, I'm a new man?
I'll mention 2 episodes. I'm engaged now, and a few years ago, my then girlfriend, who became my fiance, we decided to move in together. And we were looking at an apartment. The person that was showing us the apartment said, your income, the two of you, it needs to add up to over $100,000 a year. We need to see evidence of that. And before even having a conversation, Caitlin, my fiance, just said quickly, just so we can move on the apartment, said, I can take care of that. Like I can show today on my own that we have more than $100,000 coming in of income a year. And I had a moment where I was like, I don't make that much money. And we didn't know each other's financial situation. And I became cold and distant for a few hours. Eventually I opened up about it, and it became a thing. And I was like, well, I think we need to do an episode about this. And we let people look into our private life with his financial insecurity. I talked to a few other men, and that changed my life in a lot of ways. It changed the way I felt about this sort of patriarchal cloak that we wear of not financial insecurity, but financial control, and what that means as a man, as well as it changed my relationships with other men. It made my relationship with my fiance more open. And then another episode that I would point to is when we did the third season, the friendship season, called I Miss You, Period. And I had a friend who I hadn't talked to in a while. He emailed me. I emailed him back. We were catching up over email. And at the end of the email, I wrote the words, I miss you. And then was going to press send. And then I erased the words, I miss you. And then, I've done this before. What the hell is going on here? So we did an episode that's sort of an investigation of, I don't think I love you are the hardest words for men to say. I think there's a few different versions of I miss you. And again, also doing things without the addition of man, dude, bro, whatever. The emphaticness of I miss you, or I need you, or please hold me. Like those that like triumvirate there, I think are the hardest things for us to get out. And it changed my life, but it also it's made me, I think the honest truth that episode pointed to is it still is hard for me. I think the grace of giving myself and all of us, like how much socialization is hard to get rid of. And going back to this idea of shame, like I'm a human being. There are things I've been conditioned to do. I may not be perfect. It may take some time, but I'm going to keep working on it. So I think in that way, that episode has changed me. And it's changed my interpersonal relationships too, for the better.
This is really making me think of my friend Afan differently. Afan sometimes, I think so much even friendships are a little bit transactional, meaning like when you text me with information or a question, like, so I know how to engage.
Yeah.
And sometimes Afan just says hi. Actually, a lot. And I'm just like, hi? Like just hi? That's it. Nothing. No other information. And I've come to accept it, but now hearing this story, I'm thinking to myself, that's an I miss you. That's a check-in. That's what we do for friends. That's what we should do. That's what we get to do. Hi. I need you. I want to talk to you. How, like, I don't need to ask more, but I am opening the door. Sometimes it's just the waving emoji.
Yeah.
I miss you. I don't know that for a lot of men, I love you is easy. You said it is easy. Like, I'm not sure that. I think love you is, right? Like when you add the I, you really personalize it. Like I love you.
I think I agree. I should restate that. I don't think it's the easy. I think it's easier, but I don't think it's easiest. Like, and I still have a hard time without adding the man at the end of it. I have a friend that ends a lot of messages saying, I love you. And again, it's that response where I go, Mark, don't just repeat it back. Just repeat it back. Robot Mark. Like I still have to condition myself to do it. But I have an easier time with that than saying, I miss you feels the longing that's implied in that. I think there is the way we treat a lot of male friendships is sort of on a binary. It's like you're this way or it's homoerotic. It's one or the other. I think even the word bromance is I'm not saying anybody who uses it, I'm not accusing them of this, but then culturally its roots are homophobic. It's othering friendship between men as this exotic thing where we don't see two women hug or spend hours together and go, I don't know what the word would be, but basically the equivalent of like, Look at this little bromance. We don't other the friendships of women that way.
I do think I have a friend who says, we need to romanticize friendship and normalize romance. Like, and that for men, for women, for men with women, for women with men, like that will start to balance the scales. Start learning how to just compliment people, not because you want to get something from them for romance. Compliment your friends, right? Compliment strangers. Get into the habit of complimenting people, things you like about them. Do romanticize. Tell your friend, I miss you, the way you would tell a partner. Like, I miss you. I want to see you. Go on the date, like raise the stakes, because these people in your life, there's a lot of science, and, we're a lonely society right now. It's literally a global health issue. It's a problem. And I think a lot of people are missing people. I keep returning to this image of the man in the mirror, the man looking at himself and saying, fat. I think a lot of us are looking at ourselves in the mirror, saying things to ourselves that are not true, or things we need. And I hope friends can be that. Again, let us romanticize friendships and normalize relationships. Man, I could do a whole podcast series on male friendship, about us leaving all that shame behind and sitting with it. Let's normalize this romance between us. Normalize going to the botanical garden with your homie, having tea time, having honest conversations. Let's break these stereotypes that we have about masculinity. Afan, next time I see you, we are definitely going to the botanical gardens, and dinner is on you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I go a little closer to home to hear a different perspective on masculinity. We're going to hear from the one and only William Rivas, my pops, right after this. Yo, we are back. And by we, I mean me and William Rivas. Now, my pops is the first person who came to mind when I thought about this episode. I mean, he literally was my first male role model. But his story is a little different.
All right, I was more influenced by my grandfather than I was with my father, because my mother divorced when I was 3. So I didn't have much of an influence from my father's side. Then she remarried, and I had influence from a beast of a man who basically was extremely too machismo. And the truth is, his theory was man up. He would say, that's gay. Don't be a vagina. Stuff like that is what I would get. So it was kind of like, to the point, I was directed in a way that men do not cry and do not have tears. Why are you crying? Why are you crying? You would get that. So as time goes by, I basically myself have known, and as I got older and seen other mentors that I had, to basically say, yeah, men do cry. Men do have feelings. We are the breadwinner sometimes, but at the same time, times have changed, and it's a family thing. Women are the breadwinners sometimes nowadays. As masculinity is a concept that could be reimagined, or imagine in a sense that it reshapes over generations, is what I say.
Masculinity is a concept that can be reimagined. I never thought about it that way until now. It was really nice to hear my pops say this. And in reality, my pops is a living example of this. Because as he shared with me, he underwent his own evolution, and he did it all on his own. In fact, my pops is still undergoing that evolution. Every day I watch him challenge himself to get a little softer and to open his heart a little more, and it's extremely beautiful, and I'm wildly grateful. Thank you, Pops. You're out on your own, you're doing your thing, you're hanging out with different sorts of people. What kind of man did you want to be? You could sum it up.
I wanted to be a man who basically, I wanted to be a man that basically did what's right. Didn't to the situation that I didn't care what you were, what you did. Anger was not supposed to be part of it. As I got older, I started to, calm down. But the truth is, it wasn't about, just, I had feelings, being a successful person, but at the same time, understanding helping your surroundings or your fellow other friends. None of that was really, I started to go in a direction as what I was taught by my peers, or let's say the family side, the Dominican side of me. I wanted to go a different way. I decided on my own to do this. Thank God for a lot of my friends who were basically helped me to see and have an open mind, go, bigger horizon.
When you say to do this is what?
This is to be that man. You want to be, like I told you, you want to be you're the only breadwinner. You're the tough guy. You're active. You're strong. You're supposed to be successful, in control over women. It's like that. That's the mentality that in the olden days, that was it. Stand up for themselves. Like yell at people. Can't take it. Don't be mistaken. Don't cry. Take charge. Know about your sex. Stuff like that. It's like you're the man.
And are those things that you ever actively tried? Are those all things you tried to avoid, or did you fall into those traps?
There was a point when I fell into those traps. There was a point, not as a couple. I would say that I never treated a woman in that direction, but more that I had to be that tough guy. You want, and it's the mentality. The truth is, it's you have a perception. Let me give you an example. Perception. You're in the train, right? All of a sudden, you see somebody that's coming to be a bully. So you got to act tough. You got to stand up for yourself. So that's a way of being that, that on that tough side. Those that are basically want to take advantage and be bullies is where you have to, stand up for yourself.
So we've talked about machismo, tiguerismo, like those stereotypes for Latin men. What are the good qualities of masculinity that Latinidad carries?
They're very hospitable to their women in many ways. They basically have a machismo, or a man typically opens the doors for the women. That's an example. You attend to your woman. Make sure you protect your woman. When woman's in need,
man,
or your man. See that's when things change. So that's when things change in a way. But for masculinity, basically, I mean, nowadays that's so hard because even at work, some jobs and some companies, they make it impossible, and it becomes a harmful behavior in the sense that the place you might be working, if you act a certain way, you're not part of the group, you're not part of the team. I mean, there's a company that we're affiliated with that recently I said to them, how come you guys don't hire any women? They have 3 women, and most of those 3 women basically they do all the paperwork, but none of them are venture capitalists. It's a venture capitalist company. They're all in financing, and they're all guys. And I'm like, there's got to be a woman that's into this. Why don't you guys do that? But this company has a thing that they basically feel that it's a man's job. It's most of the guys are into this. No women is into it. And I doubt that very much.
What do you think you wanted to teach me about being a man when I was growing up?
How to take care of a woman and how to survive in this world in the sense of protecting yourself from the good and the bad. I don't know if it has to do with masculinity, but to me it was if you being a masculine man, as you know, I've always tried to guide you in the sense of how to behave, how to take care of yourself. What's the right thing to do. Dressing wise, you decided to go on your own direction, but I always try to guide you in this sense. Before the word metro came out, I was a metro. Remember that one? What is the word metro?
For those listening.
Sexual. Yeah. I was always taking care of myself. I think to me, a man should always be at his best, look good, impressively. And also, it's the same thing as the springtime when the birds are looking and the male birds are looking for a nice female. Same thing. You want to look great. You want to look good and be attractive in a sense. It's the first appearance when you basically go to a job. What's the first thing they look at? Things like that. Does that have to do with masculinity? Maybe yes, maybe no.
How did you go about teaching me these things?
Maybe you can answer that, because did I teach you those things? I basically, I did it slowly as you grew up. As you grew up, I guided you in the sense that depending on your age, what to do. As you got to high school, I kept telling you, be careful, don't put up with anything. Make sure that you stand up for yourself. Don't have fear, because you had to take the train, and that was very tough for you. So that was really at your age to let go was really tough. We're the only mammals that never let go of our children, by the way. I want you to know that. they still stuck to us, and it's hard to let go.
Howard, have you let go? Do you let go? Are you not?
No, I haven't let go. Your mother doesn't let go. I haven't. I try to let go.
Let go.
Yeah, your mom doesn't. But I try. I try to let go. But let me tell you what it is. It's tough. What you really want to know, what you really want is that I'm going to give you an example about you. I want to make sure that you're surviving in this world and you're taking care of yourself. And somehow I have this fatherly thing that I want to make sure my kids are not hungry, that they're not suffering, and they take care of it. That's all about family. Is that a masculinity thing? It could be. But I can't say masculinity because also your mother, as a female, also has a concern and want to make sure that you guys are thriving and surviving financially in every aspect, in every way.
Thank you, Pops. I am absolutely taking care of myself, and I thank you for all the wisdom and lessons that you have imparted on me and still are sharing with me. But for real, whatever thoughts I may have on masculinity or you may have, can we at least all agree on the essence of what Marx and my Pops told us today? That as men, the world would be this kinder, more compassionate place if we all found ways to show that we care about each other. We really do. I'm committed to trying my best to do that. Will you join me? Can we do that together? Okay. I want to give a huge thanks to Mark Pagan for sharing your magic and storytelling with us. Thanks to William for putting up with my questions always. I love you, and I will see you soon. And if y'all want to hear more about this topic, then I highly encourage you to check out one of my new favorite podcasts. It's called Man Enough. It's hosted by musical genius Jamie Heath, journalist Liz Plank, and actor Justin Baldoni. And, fun fact, I've actually guest hosted a few episodes. All right, y'all. I'll talk to you soon. Peace. Brown Enough is a production of Stitcher Studios. It's created and hosted by me, Christopher Rivas, and I'm also an executive producer. Our team includes producer Manolo Morales, technical director Casey Holford, production assistant Gabriella Gladney, and executive producer Camille Stanley. Original music by Casey Holford. Special thanks to Abby Aguilar. Workhouse Media is a contributing producer to this podcast. Carlos E. Hernandez of Ikigai Management is also an executive producer of Brown Enough. Don't forget to subscribe or follow Brown Enough so you never miss an episode. Thanks. Peace and love.